All right. Welcome to another ShareWise webinar. I'm Wei, and today we're proud to have Dr. Paul Gavin, Chief Executive Officer at Avecho Biotechnology, joining us today. Paul, thanks for joining us today. I might just hand over to you first and give an introduction about yourself as well as Avecho. Thanks.
Thanks, Wei. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time today. So, yeah, my name's Dr. Paul Gavin. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Avecho Biotechnology. And we've really spent the last 6 years driving a proprietary cannabidiol capsule towards TGA registration. And the major piece of data required that we need is the results from a pivotal phase 3 clinical trial. And we're going to have the first readout of that in a couple of weeks at the end of June. So I guess what I want to talk to you today about is we have a proprietary product. We have a unique commercial opportunity. We already have a large pharmaceutical partner locked in and a phase 3 result next month. So we're heading into a very exciting time for ourselves and our shareholders. And so this is a very brief snapshot of the company as we now sit. We've got sufficient cash in the bank to get us to and past our interim analysis in June. And with success there, we anticipate a number of attractive options moving forward. The key thing, I guess, to draw everyone's attention to, if you've been following our story, is that for the last couple of years, we've had sort of 2 billion options, which have been overhanging the company with an exercise price of 1.2 cents. They all lapsed a couple of weeks ago. So now there's no impediment. And as you can see, we've seen very nice appreciation of the share price over the last 12 months. And obviously, we expect that to continue significantly with a positive result in June. Euroz Hartleys independently initiated coverage a couple of weeks ago, and they have a targeted buy price of 4.3 cents for the company. Now, this is my one-page summary for those of you new to the story. So we have developed a proprietary cannabidiol capsule. Now, it's enhanced with our own technology called TPM, which I'll talk about in a minute. TPM increases drug absorption. So if you put TPM into a pharmaceutical product, you get better drug absorption and the product has more effectiveness. Now, this capsule is in a pivotal phase 3 clinical trial with the primary indication of insomnia. Now, everyone knows what insomnia is. What you probably don't realize, as far as clinical indications, is how massive it is. So it's essentially 10 to 30% of the population. So we'll never, ever run out of patients. Now, as well, today I'll talk about a unique Australian opportunity. You don't often hear biotech CEOs in Australia talking about an Australian opportunity because we generally don't care because it's only 28 million people. But there is something in Australia right now which is so unique and so lucrative and strategic, we couldn't say no. And I'll talk about that. And that brought Sandoz to a table. So we have already licensed the product in Australia before phase 3 results are available to the largest pharmaceutical generics company in the world. So upcoming milestones, phase 3 result, interim analysis result in a couple of weeks. That will lead to global licensing deals in further territory, phase 3 study completion, FDA, TGA, all the good stuff that we invest in biotech for. So the indication, I won't talk too much about insomnia. As I said, 10 to 30% of the population, over 200 million patients around the world. The interesting thing I'll just draw your attention to with insomnia is that it's not just a primary indication of its own. It's also a symptom of a range of other disorders. Very specifically, mental health. So anxiety and depression and insomnia all go hand in hand. And we've been doing work with US psychiatrists that would the first thing that they would like to do with their depressed patients is treat their sleep, but they're unable to prescribe existing sleep medications, sedatives, for fear that they'll use them to self-harm and try and overdose. So you can't hurt yourself with CBD. It's impossible to die. So we are potentially building an insomnia product that can be thrown at the ginormous global mental health market. Now, this is a very, very important slide. So this is here to show you the value of a cannabidiol product if you take it all the way to registration as a pharmaceutical. So registration with the FDA or the TGA. At the moment in the world, there is only one pharmaceutical CBD product, which is this product here, Epidiolex. It was developed by a company called GW Pharma. It is approved for rare childhood epilepsy. So it's one of these orphan drugs. An orphan drug means that, the disease is rare. There aren't many patients. You get a fast track for FDA approval, but once you're approved, there aren't many patients to treat. Now, rare childhood epilepsy. Now, despite being rarely prescribed, Epidiolex was acquired, or the company behind Epidiolex was acquired for 7.2 billion US in 2021. Where this was huge for the industry is that A, big deal. Two, the acquirer was a regular vanilla pharma company. So it showed if you turn cannabinoids into proper pharmaceuticals, big pharma is watching and listening. Now, this product specifically is of interest to us for three main reasons. The first is it's a horrible product. So it is just CBD dissolved in sesame oil with alcohol and strawberry flavoring. And no one wants to drink sesame oil as their medicine. We all want pharmaceutical dosage forms, tablets, capsules, that kind of thing. The second thing is this product has terrible absorption. So this product label states that only 6% of the CBD in this product that you swallow will ever be absorbed into your bloodstream. The 90+% will be broken down and excreted. And so obviously if you can increase the absorption above the 6%, you've got a product that works better, has more commercial options. But lastly, and this is the key feature, GW Pharma did randomized placebo-controlled phase 3 trials to prove that CBD would work for epilepsy. What they also proved in those trials is that CBD had a common side effect of sleepiness. So independent companies have already proven in phase 3 trials that CBD will work to affect your sleep. Now, at the moment, there is not a single neuropsychiatric drug approved anywhere in the world that was developed specifically for those indications. Every one of them has been discovered as a side effect from an existing medication, which is exactly what we're doing. We're taking the side effect of Epidiolex and we're throwing it at insomnia. Now, there are no pharmaceutical CBD products anywhere in the world approved for sleep, but sleep is one of the top 3 indications that consumer CBD and medicinal cannabis CBD products are prescribed for. And so this is really where we come in. You heard me mention at the start, we have our own technology called TPM, which increases drug absorption. And that's exactly what you're looking at in this slide. So over here on the left, this vial here, CBD, the drug itself is an oil. Oil and water don't mix. You can see it sits as an insoluble precipitate. The vial over here on the left is exactly the same. A bit of my TPM is added. My TPM forms nanoparticles and it solubilizes the drug. And whenever we see this kind of profile, we know we can increase drug absorption. And that's exactly what you're looking at in this graph. So this is done in the UK at the exact lab that GW Pharma did all their PK work, pharmacokinetics work. This blue line is the absorption profile of CBD into the bloodstream of dogs in the UK. The red line is Epidiolex again, this commercial product, just if you add a bit of my TPM to it. So just adding my TPM to this commercial product increases absorption by about 400%. So once we saw this kind of data, we just determined we would build a better Epidiolex. So increased absorption, pharmaceutical dosage form, so ours is already a capsule, full pharmaceutical manufacture, patent protection, so it's protected out till 2043, and we would shoot for an indication that affects a significant percentage of the planet rather than just one that's a rare disease. Which brings me to my phase 3 trial. So I understand this is a wall of text. Don't spend too much time reading it. I'll walk you through the important bits. The things to take home is that our trial is the largest phase 3 placebo-controlled trial in the world that we are aware of, looking at CBD for insomnia. It was developed using the FDA and the EMA guidance documents to make sure it was submissible. In total, we were targeting 519 patients, but the trial has 3 features that I just need to draw your attention to. The first is that we have 2 primary endpoints, the Insomnia Severity Index and sleep efficiency. The way we have built our trial, we only need one to work. I don't care which one. If either one of them works, the trial is a success. The reason we have 2 is that they both capture a different angle of sleep. So if CBD works one way, we'll catch it. If it works the other way, we'll catch it. So we have 2 independent bites at the cherry. The second piece is we have an interim analysis. And that's what's coming up in a couple of weeks. So targeting 519 patients in total, but after 210, we get to look at the data, determine if the product's working, and essentially adjust the trial halfway through. So normally an interim analysis is to say, trial isn't working, stop, or trial is working, keep going. Ours allows us to recalibrate the trial and adjust the patient numbers we need in the second part of the study to exactly hit the patient numbers we need for statistical significance. So it's a huge, huge advantage. But the last one, which is really the secret sauce of our trial, is we have 3 treatment groups. We have a placebo group, so they're not taking CBD, and then 2 doses of CBD. The thing that we know about this trial and trials like this, whether they're insomnia or pain or anxiety, is that there will be a huge placebo effect. So patients who aren't taking study drug will improve. The art in a trial like this is designing the trial in such a way that you can see the difference between the treatment and the placebo. So what we have is called a placebo run-in. So essentially, before they come onto the treatment, every patient on our trial is on placebo for the first 2 weeks. They just don't know they're on placebo. And at the end of those 2 weeks, we assess their sleep. And if their sleep has significantly improved after 2 weeks on placebo, thanks for your time, you're off the study. So we remove all the high placebo responders before we actually start recording data. And so the example I give is a lady that came in, she scored a 23 on the Insomnia Severity Index. So she's in the severe category. She tells us she hasn't slept well in 10 years and none of the existing sleep medication works for her. After 2 weeks on placebo, her score went from 23 to 1. And she swore it was the best product she's ever had. And we were doing God's work. Hallelujah. And we have to say, thanks for your time. You're off the trial. That is the patient that kills your phase 3 trial. And as of this moment, we have had 244 patients successfully make it through the interim analysis. And they are part of the population that's being assessed for the interim analysis. But we've kicked off nearly 200 patients on that placebo run-in. That shows you what a problem it is. It shows you how well our placebo run-in has worked. But once it's on market, all those patients that we kicked off will be our best friends because they will all be convinced that the product works. So the take-home message is we have developed this protocol within an inch of its life to make sure that A, if CBD does anything, we will see it and the trial will be successful. But B, that this trial is submissible to all the major regulatory agencies around the world. Now, the Australian opportunity, it is unique, it is lucrative, it is strategic, and it results from the fact that the Australian government and the TGA hate medicinal cannabis. So in Australia, medicinal cannabis is legal as a prescription medicine, but it's all prescribed through a couple of TGA loopholes like the Special Access Scheme. And those are for unapproved medicines. So you can prescribe an unapproved medicine without proving it works, proving it's safe, proving it is of sufficient quality. And there are now over 1,000 medicinal cannabis products being prescribed through these loopholes. So that our government and the TGA, well, our government's into the TGA, you have to fix this. You have to try and get the genie back in the bottle. And so the TGA dangled this huge commercial carrot in front of the industry, which was if you do proper drug development, proper phase 3 clinical trials, you prove CBD works and is safe, and get it successfully registered as a pharmaceutical with the TGA, they would allow it to be registered as an over-the-counter medicine. So what is that? That's one of those medicines you can walk into any pharmacy in the country and buy direct from the chemist behind the counter. You don't have to pay to see a GP, pay to get a prescription. It is direct access to the entire adult population of the country whenever they want it. Huge commercial advantage over prescription medicines. And when they announced this, we truthfully thought we were the only company in Australia that could do it. A lot of medicinal cannabis companies ran for the opportunity. They all failed because they had very poorly designed trials and poor products. So we are now the last one in this race. And because of that, and because how desperate the TGA are for one of these to succeed, we met them in 2024. We walked them through our phase 3 protocol and our submission strategy. They described everything as well thought out and robust, and they had no recommended changes. So we could kick off the trial knowing that if it works, there's little reason for the TGA to say no, which would be a world first. Now, the Australian opportunity, as I say, 10 to 30% of the population have sleep problems. So that's 9.5 million Australians. But because you don't need a prescription, the pain patients will buy it, and the anxiety patients will buy it, and the menopause patients will buy it, and the osteoarthritis patients will buy it. It will be one of the most off-label dispensed products in Australian history. And independent journalists had sort of thought that year one, maybe it makes 125 million US. Sandoz, who we'll talk about in a sec, their business case is much better than this. So Globally, insomnia is already above 5 billion, but when you hear about mental health, and I should have mentioned our phase 3 trial has primary endpoints around insomnia, secondary endpoints around anxiety. When you think about this as being a product applicable to mental health, which is spiraling out of control everywhere, that's already above 370 billion around the world. Which brings me to Sandoz. So I've been telling that CBD story for a number of years. We've got the best product with increased absorption. We've got the best trial. We've got this commercial opportunity with the TGA. How good, how good. And that story got to the attention of Sandoz. So if you don't know who Sandoz are, large Swiss-based multinational, largest pharmaceutical generics company on the planet. They have over 1,500 approved medicines. They have revenue above $11 billion, and they treat over 1 billion patients around the world every year. And now my product is in this stable. So huge, huge coup for us to partner with someone of the caliber of Sandoz before results are even available. And this was not an easy deal for Sandoz to do. Conservative company, as I say, generics, they broke 3 of their rules to do this deal. They don't do drug development, which is what this is. They don't do branded medicines, which is what this will be. And they don't do cannabinoids, which is what this is. But the reason, after 4 months of due diligence, they decided that they had to do it is because of their business case. And their business case is that this will be a monstrously huge product for the Australian market. And so the deal that we did, very attractive for me. So we licensed the commercial rights just to Australia. They do have a right of first refusal for the rest of the world, but at the moment they just have Australia. And for Australia, they gave us 3 million US upfront last year, non-refundable. So it's about 5 million Oz. There are 16 million US of milestones prior to the first sales. Tiered royalties of 14 to 19%. I control the manufacturing. So I manufacture the product using a manufacturer overseas. Sandoz purchased the product off me at. So I control the cost Sandoz buy it off me at, and then I have a margin on top of that. This deal, just for Australia, will see Avecho potentially getting 20 to 50 million US dollars every year for the first 10 years that this is on market in Australia. And that's with Sandoz's conservative business case. So if I never do another deal for this product, we will do very, very well just for Australia. But Australia is just a tiny piece of the world. And as lucrative as this opportunity will be for Australia, it will be monstrous for overseas markets. Now, the Australian deal is very important for 2 reasons. One, I have now pharmaceutical validation. All the other people I'm talking to know that this is the real deal, and they know Sandoz will have done the due diligence. But the second piece is it sets some guidelines as to what the kind of terms that we'll be asking for. So, we got 19 million US of milestones and upfronts before commerciality in Oz. US is 30 times bigger, and Europe's 20 times, and China's 10 times. So, yeah, I'm in discussions with a lot of companies for a lot of countries. And yeah, we're just waiting for a positive interim analysis now before we start really advancing those deals. And so the next major milestone, so it comes up in a couple of weeks. So we ended up with 244 patients for this interim analysis. It was more than what we set out to achieve. We needed 210. And yeah, the statisticians and our independent data management board are looking at the data as we speak. And so they will, they'll reach out end of June for a meeting with us, and they'll let us know how it goes. And there are essentially 3 outcomes. The first that we obviously don't want to consider is that the trial doesn't work. So despite our best efforts, we prove that CBD in our trial design just doesn't work for insomnia. The product will still have immense value because CBD is being investigated for a range of indications around the world. And my product has increased absorption, patent protection, pharmaceutical capsule. It will add value to one of those indications if we prove that it doesn't in fact work for sleep. The case that we are thinking is most likely is it says that the trial is working and we need to dose another 300 patients or whatever it is. And that will be a huge positive success. The product will be de-risked. We will know the trial's working. Sandoz will know the trial's working. And we'll dose through those patients as fast as we can. The last scenario, which is new, to be very clear, this is an upside. We don't think this is likely, but there is a scenario that if the trial works very, very well, we can stop it at the end of June and call it a successfully finished phase 3 trial, which will obviously be huge for everyone. And so, yeah, like after many, many years, we are now coming into a whole range of major inflection points, and they're all going to come one after another. So we've done our first pharma deal. The first pharma deal is always the hardest, and we probably couldn't have landed a better partner if we tried. We finished the recruitment, which was dragging on for a long time. It's done. It's in the bank. The patients are all finished. The data is now with our independent data review board, and we're going to have a result at the end of June. And essentially, there are two positive outcomes. One is that we continue dosing, and the second is that the trial's completed. So, yeah, the trial will be finished either this year or next year. But with either of those outcomes, we would expect the second half of the year to be pharmaceutical licensing deals for additional global territories. And we'll take those upfronts and we'll use them to fund the rest of the trial should it need more. That leads on to TGA submission, approval, commercial launch. With a positive outcome in June as well, we will run over to the FDA and have a chat about what additional information, if any, the FDA needs to see before pharmaceutical registration. So the opportunity is now. I've been running around the last couple of months telling everyone about the story so that anyone that wants to get set before June can get set. Because, yeah, with a positive result in June, we're not going to be a sort of $50 million market cap company for much longer. And so, yeah, Wei, with that, I guess I'll stop there and pass over to you for any questions.
No worries. Thanks, Paul. That was a very comprehensive presentation. Appreciate it. I do have a few questions. Just a reminder, if you do have questions online, feel free to use the Q&A box, or if you're a bit braver, you can use the raise hand function and you can just ask in person. So let's just start with CBD trials in the past and how Avecho compares to that. Can you talk about how other CBD trials have ended in the past and why you think that your one is different from those which have occurred previously?
Yeah, so I think three medicinal cannabis companies in Australia tried to shoot for it. Now, our trial their trials had a range of deficiencies, and our trial overcomes all of them. So for this Australian OTC opportunity, you're allowed to have a maximum daily dose of 150 milligrams of CBD. So I think two of those three companies only went to 100 milligrams. So they left 50 milligrams on the table. Only one went to 150. So we're using the full dose of 150, plus we've got the increased absorption, so it will act as a much higher dose. So that's the first part. The second part is that they had very weak inclusion scores. So everyone knows the placebo effect is a problem. That insomnia severity index gives you a insomnia severity score, and most of those other companies had an inclusion score of 8. So 8 is the lowest score that you can have and be considered to have a sleep problem. But the placebo effect in these studies generally reduces that score by about 6 to 7. So if you're bringing in patients with a score of 8, and then you have a placebo effect of 6 to 7, you've got no range left to see any difference between treatment and placebo. You have to score a score of 15 to be on my trial. Then none of them had an interim analysis. They all had relatively small trials. So my interim analysis patient number is bigger than most of their trials. My 519 is much, much bigger. So I've got more statistical power. I've got the two primary endpoints, which only want to work, and none of them had a placebo run-in. And the thing about the placebo run-in is where I got very lucky with my shareholders is that in Australia, when you do a clinical trial, you have to publish your clinical trial protocol. So we could see what everyone else was doing. And I was at a conference at the end of 2022 talking to someone. I told them that we'd reviewed everyone's protocols and we knew everyone was going to fail because of the placebo effect. And fortunately, a journalist overheard me and interviewed me. So I was published in a journal or an interview end of 2022 saying everyone's going to fail because they don't understand the placebo effect. And then Q1 the next year, they all started failing. And the reason they started failing is the CEOs all said we had a really high placebo effect. So I could legitimately go to the shareholders and say their failure is not a commentary on CBD. It's a commentary on lack of drug development experience, poor product, and poor clinical trials.
Well, why do you think it is that they didn't do the placebo run-in? I mean, now that you mention it, it seems pretty obvious. Um,
Oh, you truthfully have to understand the medicinal cannabis industry and that none of those people come from drug development. Like these clinical trials that they were doing, it was the first clinical trial program most of the individuals in that country had ever in that company had ever done. Like, it was really amateur hour. So we've been doing clinical trials for 20 years and pharmaceutical drug development for 20 years. It's
Mm.
why we've managed to advance this product, land, Sandoz as a partner. Yeah, like it was their trials were just very evidence of lack of experience.
Okay, that makes sense. There's a few questions which have come through online. So the first one is just in regards to the outcomes of the interim. If option two, more patient trials are required, how will that additional work be funded?
Yeah, so legitimately, if my interim analysis says I need another 300 patients, which I hope it does, I will need more capital. But I will have the luxury of choice. So at that point, obviously, my share price will go through a very, very large re-rate. Now, I am not intending to run out and raise capital. I have a number of pharmaceutical companies at the table, very interested to see how my result goes. And the priority will obviously be to license the rights to overseas geographies, exactly as I've just done with Sandoz, and use that money to fund the completion of the trial. So, as I say, the first deal is always the hardest. I'm going to find it even easier to do subsequent deals with a positive interim analysis because everyone understands that in that scenario, the trial's working, product's working, significant de-risk.
Okay, makes sense. The next one is since CBD is a generic and widely available, what is to stop other companies from using the insomnia indication in their marketing?
Uh, so if you're talking about this, I guess there's two separate answers to that question. So it's impossible to get patent protection on the CBD molecule because it is of botanical origin. You can't get a compositional matter of patent on something of botanical origin. So what you need is patent protection on the actual formulation, which is what I have. So my formulation is now protected in the US and it's going through Europe out to 2043. So no one can copy my formulation. Now, the unregistered medicinal cannabis space aren't technically allowed to make claims. So those products should not have any attached claims to them because they haven't been proven to work for anything. So that's why medicinal cannabis can be prescribed in Australia. It's not that you get an insomnia drug or an anxiety drug or a pain drug, you just take cannabis. So it's difficult for them to leverage the same claims as me. I guess the flip side to that question as well is I can't protect the insomnia indication. Like I can't stop someone else going to develop a CBD product for insomnia. And truthfully, once I get this registered and it becomes a huge commercial success, we would expect a whole range of companies to try and formally register CBD products for insomnia. And Sandoz have taken that into account. So Sandoz have modeled that they have the Australian market to themselves for 5 years, and then additional companies come in. But when an additional company comes in, best of luck to you. You're now in a price war with the world's largest pharmaceutical generics company. So, yeah, very comfortable that Sandoz manages to maximize the market.
Right. And when you talk about the patented formula, that's because you've got the TPM included?
It is. So, I mean, our TPM is our own. It's impossible for someone to make a generic of our product because it has the TPM and the TPM has its own patent protection and we're the ones that manufacture it. So no one in the future will be able to make a generic of our product. They'll be able to try and build a different product and show bioequivalence, but that's a whole different game. So our TPM is essentially a very, very nice moat around our product that intellectually protects the product.
Right. Another question which has come through is who will do the manufacturing for you?
So at the moment, there's a US company manufacturing the CBD. So our CBD is not of botanical origin. It's never come from a plant. It's never touched a plant. This is a synthetic pharmaceutical form of CBD that already has a DMF lodged and reviewed by the FDA. So the drug itself is currently manufactured in the US. Our capsule was until recently being manufactured in the US by a global capsule manufacturer, but they've taken advantage of the Trump world and US manufacturer to sell their US manufacturing facility to someone else. So we're moving the manufacture of the capsule to Colombia. So same global company, just different manufacturing site, which is Colombia.
Okay, excellent. Before you mentioned having two bites of the cherry and how it affects sleep in two different ways. So how do you measure these two different ways?
So the Insomnia Severity Index is a questionnaire. So it's an FDA validated questionnaire. It's 7 questions that each have a score out of 4. And so depending on how you answer those questions, you get a total score out of 28. So patients go into the clinic at regular intervals across the 8 weeks that they're on our trial, and the clinicians administer this questionnaire to them. And the questionnaire basically says, answer these 7 questions, how you've slept over the last 2 weeks. And then what we're looking at with the trial is an improvement in that score. So if you start with a score of 15, we would like our CBD product to reduce your score to whatever it is, 10, 8, 12. The other one is sleep efficiency. So sleep efficiency, every single morning on our trial, the patients wake up and they fill out a sleep diary, which is essentially, what time did you go to bed? What time do you think you fell asleep? Did you wake up in the middle of the night? If you did, how long were you awake for? And then what time did you wake up in the morning? And so we use that to generate sleep efficiency. So sleep efficiency is just the mathematics of, you may have slept in total for 5 hours, but you lay in bed for 10 hours. So your sleep efficiency is 50%. So again, we're looking for an increase in sleep efficiency across the trial. I should say, just quickly, which is where the sort of early stopping clause for efficacy is interesting. The Insomnia Severity Index endpoint needs 519 patients. The sleep efficiency endpoint only ever needed 159. So we've already done nearly 100 patients more than required for the sleep efficiency, which does bring into play a bit more than normal this early stopping for efficacy.
Excellent. Another question which has come through is, what do the clinicians think? GP competition with telehealth, how will you link to holistic patient care?
I won't. This has nothing to do with telehealth. You won't need telehealth.
Right, because it's
You can walk.
OTC.
It's OTC. You can make the decision yourself that you want this medication and walk into any chemist warehouse, Terry White, Priceline in the country and buy it direct from the pharmacist. So we are removing the physician overlay, and it's up to you if you want to take this product, and you can go and self-select and buy it yourself.
Excellent. Before you mentioned the TGA looking to provide a carrot and the 1,000 unapproved CBD products right now.
Yeah.
So are these still available? Can people just buy that rather than go for your OTC once it's available?
Yeah, there are over 1,000, as I say, over 1,000 medicinal cannabis products being prescribed through the Special Access Scheme and the Authorized Prescriber Scheme. In order to obtain those, you obviously need to see a GP, whether that's face-to-face or through one of these telehealth things. So you need to obviously pay for that, and then you need to pay for your prescription, and then go pick it up from pharmacy. So this product we're anticipating will be cheaper than medicinal cannabis, because it'll be manufactured at scale. But the other piece to this story is that once this is registered, a similar product will be unable to be prescribed through the medicinal cannabis routes.
Mm.
So the medicinal cannabis routes are only available where there is not a registered medicines option. So if we are successful and register this product with the TGA, it will suddenly become illegal to prescribe a similar CBD product for the same indication through the Special Access Scheme. And the reason for that is TGA wants you to be buying a registered medicines option where it is available, because the registered medicine has proven itself to be safe, it has proven itself to work, and it is proven itself to be reproducibly manufacturable. None of those three things exist with medicinal cannabis. So the special access scheme, I should say, it's not just a medicinal cannabis thing. It's available for any medication, but you're only allowed to access that route where there's not a registered medicines option.
Right. And you mentioned before, you're the only horse race left in this one horse race. So do you consider yourself too important to fail, or?
Ah, um,
Well, that's okay.
yeah, I obviously, obviously that has no bearing on whether the trial will work or not.
Yeah.
Um, Look, as I can tell you, the government and the TGA are really, really, really keen for one of these to work, because they do want Australian patients to have access to stuff that's proven to work and proven to be safe, because that's why the TGA exists.
Yeah.
Everyone really wants this product to succeed, but wanting it to succeed has no influence on the actual outcome of the trial. The outcome of the trial will essentially be the result of all the decisions that we have made around the trial design, stacked one on top of each other. And this is the placebo run-in and the interim analysis and the endpoints and everything else that we have built into it. So there is every reason why this trial should work in a couple of weeks. But I would not be the first biotech CEO that was comfortable that their trial would work and then get a nasty surprise.
Well, at least you've got the regulatory authorities on your side. Well, rooting for
Uh,
you. Yeah,
Like,
at least.
truthfully, we do. And I mean, the thing about it is, again, I cannot guarantee that this trial will work. Like, I can't. I can't sit there and promise anyone that the trial will work. I can guarantee that there are very, very good reasons why it will. Um, but I guess for the people that invest in biotech, this is why you invest in biotech. You invest in biotech coming into a pivotal readout of a phase 3 trial. And this has a regulatory agency desperate to approve it. It has the largest pharmaceutical generics company on the planet already locked in to go. And yeah, and then we have a market cap of 45 million bucks. So it is the cheapest ASX biotech asset in a phase 3 trial that anyone can jump on with a pivotal readout coming up in a couple of weeks.
No, it definitely sounds very exciting. Got a question coming through from Anthony H. Anthony, if you want to go ahead.
Oh, hi. I just had a couple of questions. One is how common are, I guess, placebo inclusion studies done before the actual study is done? And does that raise any questions with any of the international regulatory bodies that you would be looking for approval with? And if I think the US, assuming that you reach statistical significance in the phase 3, either the interim or the if you have to do a second trial, is post that, what's the timeline to get your product to market, given sort of the approvals process and labeling and everything else that has to go on?
So placebo running is standard. So even our trial design, we basically used the trial design that was used by another pharmaceutical company, AZI, to approve their insomnia drug Lemborexit. So placebo run-in has been used in the last 3 FDA-approved insomnia drugs that weren't cannabinoids, just orexin antagonists. So yeah, it's common in pain trials, it's common in anxiety trials, any trial where the outcome is governed by patient-reported outcomes is susceptible to placebo effect
Mm-hmm.
and typically has some kind of placebo run-in. So very, very, very standard. The second point around the FDA, so truthfully, I up until recently thought that the FDA would probably be the last country to fall for me from a licensing perspective. The FDA has an insomnia guidance document that we have followed for the design of this trial, and the FDA insomnia guidance document asks for 2 phase 3 clinical trials. So we've always been under the assumption, oh, that's okay. This trial is designed to be one of them. And then we'll go over, we'll partner in the US, and we'll do another phase 3 trial with an American partner and all the rest. Now, what's happened in the very recent past? I have a US regulatory firm I use. They came out to Australia 2 months ago because they were desperate to talk. And they basically said, we need you in front of the FDA the minute this works in June, because the FDA has lost a significant percentage of their senior staff under the Trump administration. So they are much less experienced than they have been. And Trump has legalized cannabis, and Trump has signed an executive order that the FDA needs to approve products on a single phase 3 rather than 2 phase 3s. So my initial concern with that, which I said was, well, I haven't dosed any American patients. I've just been doing an Australian trial. And they said Australian demographics are similar to the US, so the FDA will accept this trial. So when this works in June, my reg team are taking me straight to the FDA to have a chat about whether we can ram this through and get it approved relatively quickly. So that's hot off the press. So I have not been anticipating anything like that for the last couple of years. Just the last bit on the commercialization bit. So the first market this will be launched on will be Australia, assuming it works. Obviously, the timeline of commerciality very much depends on whether in a couple of weeks my result says my trial is finished, or whether it says you need to dose another 300 patients. If I need to dose another 300 patients, by the time I start recruiting, we think that 300 patients will take us about another 12 months. At which point Sandoz is responsible for the TGA submission. So it may be that the phase 3 finishes towards the back end of next year. And then depending on how advanced the TGA submission is, they either submit at the back end of next year or early 2028. And then it's just how long it takes the TGA to approve it. So they're the kind of loose timelines. I did get asked a question at my AGM last week about, if you have to dose another 300 patients, it takes another 12 months. That's, you have to understand that if this trial works in June and it tells me to dose another 300 patients, I will know the trial is working, and we'll know the drug is working, and you will know the drug is working, and all my pharmaceutical partners will know the drug is working. And so suddenly my investment story is very different. And so essentially during that 12 months, when the trial is continuing, I will be running around doing a victory lap to investors, telling them about the imminent results of a phase 3 trial that we know, well, we don't know, is likely to work. And during that time, we will be doing licensing deal after licensing deal for international jurisdictions. So by the time I get to the phase 3 positive result at the end of next year, I won't be hitting that result with a $40 million market cap. I'll be hitting that result with a market cap that is multiples above what we are now. So it will not be disadvantaged to shareholders at all. I would expect the share price appreciates and appreciates and appreciates over the next sort of 12, 18 months.
Excellent. Last couple of questions, then we'll wrap it up. So the first one is just in terms of the milestones you mentioned for Sandoz. Are you able to give us a bit of color on what they are?
Yeah. Those milestones are around TGA approval and commercial launch.
Okay, easy. And so would that help fund if we had a successful interim or?
No. So, obviously TGA approval comes after the completion of the phase 3 trial.
Right.
So yeah, like in the assumption that I need another 300 patients, I will need additional capital to finish the trial. It'll either come from Sandoz for another country or pharmaceutical company ABC for another pharmaceutical company. And I will have the option of doing a placement, I guess, if I think that, Sandoz or whoever else are taking too long to decide. That is not my aim and it's not my priority.
Great. Last question is on, I guess, the ultimate end game. Is it to be acquired, and would Sandoz be a potential buyer?
I definitely think someone acquires us in the future if everything keeps going well. I would not honestly see Sandoz even thinking about acquiring us until the product was on market. And at that point, they're paying us royalties and things that they could just buy the company. But so realistically, that would be a few years out. But in that scenario, assuming it keeps working, I've already got the stuff going into the US, FDA, EMA. I've got partners in other territories. It's $1 billion market cap instead of 40 million. So by the time they look around to acquire us, it's at a much, much, much higher valuation. So yeah, I mean the other thing, I mean the CBD products. I mean, the minute this works in June as well, there's a whole lot of other indications we start looking for that product for IBS, IBD, osteoarthritis, menopause. We start expanding the label. There's a whole lot of other products behind that with overseas licensing, we can start progressing as well. So suddenly when we're acquired, we'd be a much bigger company.
Excellent. Well, we're 45 minutes on the dot, so we'll call it there. Thank you, Paul, for your time. It's a great
Thank you,
presentation,
guys.
great story, learned a lot.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining. Bye.